Come submit to the knife lab. Come spend time in the knife lab with Pete and his hyper-intelligent cat. He is definitely not a prisoner. He could leave any time. I would just want to know why. He now uses the cat's litter box because he chooses to. He is not under duress. His is not a prisoner. He enjoys eating the same food every day now. Everything is fine. Do not phone the police. Do knife lab. Do knife lab.
Hello my friends, welcome back to the Knife Lab once again. We are looking today at ZDP 189. This is a what quite often desired still to be seen in these kind of things. It has a lot of interest around it, I think due to these Spyderco FRN British Racing green knives that get about. The anecdotal evidence is potent on this stuff. That is, some people say they just feel like they never have to sharpen it. It's one of those really long lasting steels. Nothing new you're probably going to learn here. The end result of this test is going to be, hey, ZDP holds an edge really well. Yeah, it does, and I think we already know that. But always nice to have more examples of it doing that in somewhat controlled environs, which is what I can offer here in the Knife Lab. If you're new here, if it's your first time, we get an edge, we make sure it slices into held sheet of paper, and then we cut twisted sisal rope with it, 10mm, Grunt brand, until it no longer does that, until it no longer slices a held sheet of paper and it starts to catch and zag off and that sort of thing. That is then when I say, hey, this steel is no longer reliably slicing a sheet of paper. The number of rope cuts done is the result. Every steel I've tested has a number or some numbers correlating to it. They change depending on the angle, depending on the hardness. It is a work in progress that will never stop being in progress, but it is something at any rate. So yeah, we're going to look at the factory edge, and then we're going to look at a 17-degree mirror polished edge and see how that goes. ZDP is a fascinating steel. It gets its really high edge retention just by having an almost unrivaled amount of carbon in it. It's 3% carbon, which is a lot of carbon in a steel. Much more carbon than that, it can start to get quite brittle if you don't start adding other things, and it is it's an interesting example because the other steels that do about the same level of sort of very high performance, things like S110V, things like Maximet, things like M390, they get that way by using more exotic elements as well. So things like vanadium, tungsten, niobium even sometimes. You've got a very simple recipe really. Yeah, there's some trimmings of extra things, but the main bulk of the edge retention is done using carbon. And then there's a whole bunch of chromium in there too, because they are still aiming at a stainless result. The thing about the chromium is, and yes, this is absolutely Google metallurgy. Someone said that in a disparaging way, and I was sort of looked at it, I was just like, well yeah, isn't it how if you're not a metallurgist you would learn a bit about stuff to make a video at least? I didn't quite get the negative connotations, but I did see them there. But yes, absolutely. It seems like from the research that I can gather from online, no, I didn't open up any big tomes of metallurgical principle and go and find a modern super steel in there and read about it. No, I did use the internet and I did use Google. And yes, it does look like a lot of the chromium gets tied to the carbon at maybe a less effective stainless steel. So we'll see about that afterwards as well. At any rate, a couple of cup tests and then a rust test. Sounds like an all-round wholesome day in the Knife Lab. So let's get to it. Alright, so the factory edge just stopped at 345. That was earlier than I thought it was going to be, but then I think back to my previous tests and it's about right for Spyderco ZDP. Yeah, so I mean that's a very good edge off the factory edge for sure, I suppose. 345 cuts through rope as gnarly as this. Yeah, no worries at all. I think I've just been spoiled by the other steels lately, the other ones. So this used to seem like the pinnacle, but now it's just kind of in the middle of the pack of the really excellent steel. So maybe there's that going on, but I have a feeling it's going to do very well with a highly mirror polished edge. So let's scale that back to 17 degrees and make this baby sing.
It's definitely quite a lower angle. It's a 20, I'd say 20 degrees, because it's just, this is 17 and you can see it's removing that silver line but leaving a lot of Sharpie towards the absolute edge. So I'm cutting a fair bit of shoulder off. So I'd say it probably was about a 20 degree per side edge, which may indicate why it didn't do as amazingly as some others do.
Alright, this is the beast stone. This actually is taking a fair bit of time. So, yeah, one of the lengthier sharpening sessions is ahead of me, I believe. Interesting stuff. I don't recall it usually being this difficult, but then it's usually been smaller knives. No, even then, I've done an Enduro before. I've just sharpened a lot lately, and this is definitely taking longer than most, and that's including things like your Rex 45s and things like that. So, interesting. Back to it. Alright, so I've gone and put a very sharp, very shiny edge on the ZDP 189. It took a little while longer than some of the other steels feel like they have, but I guess it was a reprofile job too. But yeah, definitely one of the more intensive steels to sharpen, I guess. Not particularly hard, you just have to do the same thing for longer. So not too bad, but yeah, just something worth noting. A little bit like say Maximet or something. Like not as long as Maximet, but yeah, definitely not on the easy side, that's for sure. So at any rate, now we've got a more ideal edge. I do hope to illustrate the benefits of, at the very least, putting your own edge on your knives when you get them. Because while the factory edges from Spyderco are usually adequate or even good, you can get some really excellent results by just, I like to just reprofile straight away, go to 17 degrees per side. I've never had any issues with strength or anything like that with 17 per side. And I find it does get a bit more edge longevity than the 20. This is going to stay sharper at the tip for a bit longer than this. So anyway, there's other videos on that from, I'd suggest Big Brown Bear if you want to learn more about apexes and things like that. Let's see how this new edge cuts. $770. It's into that bit of rope. We'll see if we need a changeover. $770. You know what? It's still making a slice, and it's just making noise when it slices. So more rope then, Captain.
840. This cannot possibly threaten Maximet, it's not possible. Ooh. Alright. Alright. Alright, yeah. Okay, 840. 840. So that's a ridiculously long-lasting edge. 840 passes on Spyderco ZDP, which I don't know what they treated at, but it's definitely not 67. It's probably something more like 63 or 4. I mean, you remember their Maximet I got to, I think, 1050. So 200 less than Maximet, which has a bit less carbon, but a whole bunch of extra stuff in it. The thing is, I've done this before at 17 degrees, but that was using the old Lansky polishing system, which I guess was nowhere near the level of mirror finish that this is. And I think there is a lot in that absolute fine-grained super mirror finish that's doing that edge retention. This is still, it's still pretty much shaving hair. Like, it's got the spot that was doing the bulk of the cutting is kind of more like ripping the hair out, but that's very impressive still. And much, much longer than I thought it was going to last. I was expecting maybe 600. I have to go and change the Knife Lab shirts now. You know what a fucking pain in the ass that is? On the back of the Knife Lab shirts, there's the best ever, and this is definitely amongst that list now. That's a crazy high result for this steel. So well done, Spyderco. Well done me for this good edge, because honestly, the factory edge was okay, but yeah, as I said, it really seems to sing with a mirror polish finish. So that's the Knife Lab today on ZDP 189. I hope it did the steel some justice, and I can sort of see why everyone goes on about it. Every time I use it, it's impressive stuff. Hard to sharpen though, that was the truth. Alright guys, hope you've enjoyed. That was a cool result. I like it when it's a bit unexpected, so I'll hopefully it continues that trend and I get some 420 HC that cuts, for 300 times next time. I'm going to do a bit of rust resistance testing on this now, so do stay tuned. Alrighty, so you sort of see here a bit of a difference, a pretty evident difference really. These three knives mainly just have the cloudiness of the salt and that'll just wash off, but you can see it's brought some orange out of those steel surfaces on the ZDP model. So whilst this isn't catastrophic, and I think this will probably just go back to being 100%, it just goes to show that it is a little bit less, despite having more chromium than any of these. I mean, this one's a different thing, but way more than this or this. Actually, maybe the same as this. I can't remember. But that extra bit of carbon really soaks up that chromium for other purposes apart from rust resistance. So there you go.
The do Knife Lab.